The JSE is on track to break a three-day losing streak today, firming along with its global peers as the focus remains on inflation and the response of the central bank. To help us talk about the latest market moves, we're joined today by Matete Thulare, Head of Foreign Exchange Execution at Rand Merchant Bank. Matete, always good to have you on. Welcome back. The Rand weaker against major currencies so far today. What's driving the slump?
Good afternoon, Tembegile. I suppose, there is large two-way risks that are evident today, given the ECB meeting that's happening in the next couple of hours, and also key U.S. economic data releases that are expected to come through later on in the day. We did see the Rand starting off at 14.54. The conditions are really supportive for the Rand, but there's really large risks ahead. I mean, also, the extreme Fed pricing has eased somewhat and leading to equity gains and lower yields in the fixed income market. We did see the likes of the euro dollar failing at 108 once again, and it has bounced up. But also, on the other side of the commodity market, coal prices continue to rally. Now it's around $300 a ton. And coal prices actually in Asia have rallied also earlier this morning. That has taken their April gain to more than 20%. So obviously that's going to benefit some of the local coal mining companies. And ahead of the Easter break, I suppose the investor focus and market focus will be on the policy decision from the ECB later this afternoon, as well as the U.S. economic calendar, obviously including the retail sales report and also some jobless claims numbers and some consumer sentiment figures out of there. So, also when we just look at the Rand, just from a year-to-date basis, it is still the third best performing emerging market currency, having returned about 8.7%. So not all doom and gloom despite the weakness that we've had this morning.
Something else that's likely to draw a lot of global interest, in fact, is Russia calling on BRICS nations to explore integrating their payment systems and using local currencies to help them to facilitate trade. Is it greatly feasible, and how would it work actually?
So, if you remember, Russia has been hit by Western sanctions, and they've obviously called it the BRICS group of emerging economies. This is the likes of Russia, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, to extend the use of national currencies and to also integrate some of these into their payment systems. Now, the sanctions have cut Russia off from the global system and from nearly half of its gold and foreign exchange reserves. Now, the Finance Ministry out in Russia has noted that obviously the global economic situation has worsened substantially due to the sanctions. Now, the likes of Visa and MasterCard, those are international payment card service providers. They've suspended operations in Russia in early March. And obviously, Russia's biggest banks have also lost access to the SWIFT global banking messaging system. Now, Russia, on the back of this, they've set up their own banking messaging system known as SPFS, which is an alternative to the SWIFT payment messaging system. Now, its own card payment system, MIR, began operating in 2015. Now, the sanctions will likely bring about a mass hardware shortages and obviously cause difficulties while some of the officials in Russia try and replace the westernized software with open source and locally developed systems. So obviously it's not going to happen in the next few weeks. It is obviously going to be involving a lot of trial and error. So it is going to be interesting to see how that pans out, especially given Russia's, what they've tabled on the table for the rest of the BRICS banks to come up with a solution to actually help them from this situation.
Mm-hmm. And we've got South African mining data out. That's for February. How did production and sales fare?
So South Africa's mining production numbers, that fell more than what we expected in February. Mining production fell about 6%. The estimate was about 0.1%, and this is versus what we saw in January, where it was up 1.7%. PGM production also fell about 6.4% on a month-to-month basis. The estimate there was we're expecting it to be actually up 1.6%. Now, if you think about it, South Africa is aiming to attract about $900 million of annual investment in exploration of substantial mineral wealth. As the president said, we want to remove some bottlenecks. We want to improve resource mapping and obviously diversify our focus away from precious metals. But, this long delayed strategy comes at a time when Metal prices are obviously extremely high, and that's helping boost revenue for the national fiscus, as has been seen by Kodongwane's statement in February. But, South Africa was the world's biggest producer of gold for decades. Now, production has slumped as deposits get deeper, and it's more expensive to access some of this gold. Now, the country has got, the world's biggest deposits of PGMs and also battery, metal, vanadium, chrome and manganese. But obviously we know the challenges that we face in the mining sector. I mean, some of these things include poor policy implementation, poor geoscientific data in, the Eskom electricity issues and the supply there, the frequent strikes that we've seen there, and also some of the community unrest. So that's also now adding a hindrance to what we're seeing in the mining sector. So I think if we can actually remove some of these bottlenecks, we will see, things come to prosper.
Finally then, some good news. TikTok's ad revenue expected to surpass Twitter and Snapchat combined for this year. How come?
Well, it's quite an interesting set of numbers from TikTok. I mean, they're likely to triple in 2022 to more than $11 billion worth of ad revenue. And this is, as you say, it exceeds the likes of Twitter and Snapchat. But also remember that this is a Chinese company that is owned by ByteDance, and they're actually one of the world's most popular social media apps with over 1 billion active users. And, the user base there has exploded in the past couple of years. And the amount of time that people spend on the app is actually quite extraordinary. Already about $6 billion of that ad revenue is going to come from the U.S., despite the regulatory concerns that the U.S. has with China. And what's also interesting is the fact that TikTok is actually the most popular social media app amongst a lot of U.S. teenagers, with about 33% of them actually saying they prefer the video app over the likes of Snapchat and Instagram. So it's only, fair to actually understand why the ad revenue would be so large coming from the US and also the rest of the world.
And are you on TikTok?
Unfortunately not.
Do you have a favorite Snapchat filter? Matete Thulare, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your long weekend.
Likewise.